Hey, how's it going?
Doing good.
Yeah, I got background peoples.
Okay. It's not a problem for me.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't think today will be too hard. I'm looking forward to it. It feels it's going to be an easy day.
Yeah, I think so. I know that there's a lot to talk about under this topic.
There is a lot. Yeah, there is a lot to talk about. It's pretty diverse, but I think that, I mean, at least for the basics, like capitalism basics, I think it shouldn't be too hard to understand, especially since we have a lot of the audience is American, so they kind of they're used to capitalism.
Oh yeah, and they definitely benefit from it. So,
Yeah. Hello, everybody that's already in.
yeah, welcome. We're gonna go ahead and get started. This is the Wake Up America podcast. We're a conservative talk show, and we love people adding comments to our discussion. All we ask is that you keep them clean and you keep them relevant. That way, we can have a good discussion with each other. So
Absolutely.
we'll go ahead
Yeah.
and get started. Our topic for today is just covering the basics of the U.S. economy and the basics of capitalism and kind of why capitalism is not only a better uh, economic system, but the best economic system.
Yeah.
So those. Oh, go ahead.
Just free market. This is a precursor for anyone that's wondering. We're not turning into like an economy or business kind of podcast. This is a precursor because on Thursday we'll be talking more about why this is important.
Right. And so we'll go ahead and just I like to do a little bit of a monologue at the beginning. So, for those that don't know, capitalism is a way of doing economics and of buying and selling, which basically allows the market and the people within it to regulate their own prices and to let supply and demand regulate prices and what goods and services are offered rather than letting the government have heavy involvement in it. And me and Colson both think that this is a great economic way of operating, especially in America, which is such a huge country. And that's what we're going to be discussing about today. So if you disagree with us, or even if you agree with us, feel free to add comments as we go throughout today's show. For those that don't know, America is a capitalist society and a capitalist economy, and it is perhaps the most capitalist economy in all the world. I know there are some places that operate pretty similar, but I think we are one of, if not the most capitalist economy out there.
Yeah, capitalism kind of revolves around the free market. And in order to have a free market, you need to have basic rights, and which are things that the Constitution gives us, which makes America even more unique. But then combining our rights with capitalism, you get a system where people have the choice to choose how they want to run their lives, how they want to run their businesses, how they want to make money. Pretty much everything that revolves around individual liberty and freedom, America has. Now, there are obviously some areas that we lack, and we talk about those all the time. But today, we're just really talking about the importance of capitalism in America, because without capitalism, you fall into things like centrally planned governments where the government controls prices and what businesses can do what, how they are allowed to operate. In America, having liberty and being a government of the people allows for an economy of the people where the people choose how they want to live, how they want to sell, buy, everything.
Yeah, and we the saying that I use a lot is that in politics you vote with your vote, and then in the economy you vote with your money. And that's how capitalism kind of works. It gives people the freedom to shop and to get products that they want without having heavy involvement from the government. And it basically allows that freedom. Talking about the consumer specifically, it allows the consumer to choose between, 10 different brands of soup, or it lets the It lets the consumer decide that, no, I don't want soup, I want this or that. And the economic spectrum is basically, on one end you have capitalism, and on the other you have socialism, and there's various places in between where each country lies. Some are fully capitalized, some are very socialized. And we believe that a more capital economy is the way to go, and it is the way to promote people and bring people out of poverty. And there are a ton of reasons for that, and we'll go through a lot of them today. But one of them is that it forces people to do moral things, or it forces people to help others in order to help themselves. In a capitalist society, if I want to make money so that I can go on vacation or so that I can have a nice house, I have to sell what Colson wants. I have to sell what other people want, or I have to offer a service to people, whether that's car repair or something else. I have to offer a good that will benefit society and benefit other people in order to benefit myself. So it's almost a forced altruism type of system where it forces you to do good rather than just seek after your own gain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, which I mean, if you ask me, that's like one of the, you have capitalism. Yeah, you have people who, I mean, in our current, in the ideal capitalism, it is purely, it's like, working for society, doing good, but then also being able to make money. In reality, there's a lot of self-motivation. But the thing is that humans are naturally motivated. People are naturally greedy, things like that. And capitalism allows for the least amount of corruption in government terms and the least amount of tramping on other people's rights, because capitalism is an open thing where anything can happen. When you have economies like communism or economies under communism or socialism, where it is essentially planned economy, then the government can control things, and then that makes things inflexible. So for instance, instead of having competition between Google and Apple in a communist country, someone could just say, "Oh, well, we're going to decide that we like Apple more. We're going to decide we like Google more, and that's going to be how it is." So everyone gets to buy Android phones, or everyone gets to buy iOS phones. You just get to deal with it, and that's the option, because that's just how it works. But in a capitalist economy and free market, then you have people get to choose between what they want, voting on your dollar, like Spencer mentioned, which is the perfect phrase, because if someone does something that the general public doesn't like, or if they're just so greedy that it brings about things that affect how their product sells, then it shows. Like, so if you had someone who was super corrupt, like you have with some big tech people, where they're now facing backlash for some of their actions, they're paying for that with their money, and they're losing money for that. So that's just a good example of the free market economy and capitalism, how everyone votes on their dollar, and it's a big supply and demand.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and take our first message for today, and then we can kind of move into how capitalism breeds innovation and just new inventions in general, whereas socialism doesn't. So we'll go ahead and take this.
Is it possible to ask questions on here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
The same way you just sent that message, go ahead and send questions in. We'll listen to everything you got. Just keep it clean.
We appreciate clean, thoughtful questions or comments. We really want to get a discussion going, and we love the format that Stereo allows for us to do that sort of thing here. So while you guys are thinking about questions to ask, I guess we can go ahead and move into capitalism and innovation. So, go ahead. Capitalism is really a place, and it's the economic system that allows for the most innovation and inventions to come from. And the reason that it is like that is because capitalism says you're allowed to do whatever you want in the economic scene as long as it is not against the law and as long as you're not harming people. And what that allows is that it allows someone, we'll take the Postal Service, for example. It allows someone to look at the United States Postal Service, which is a government run agency, and it allows someone to say, okay, my mail is getting here maybe within a week. I don't know. They don't tell me when it's coming. I have no idea about anything. So I'm going to create FedEx, or I'm going to create UPS. And then all of a sudden, because capitalism allows me to do that, it allows me to put my money where I think it should be, including starting a business. Now we have several companies which will ship things, and it has improved the overall quality because now we have shipping numbers, we have ways to track our packages to see when they get there. And all of this came because capitalism said, bring what you have and you can make more of it. Capitalism, I don't know how many of you have heard this analogy, but capitalism is the idea that you can bake more pies. Under socialism, people who think that socialism is the way to go think that there is one pie and there's only so much stuff that we have, and it has to be split up. You have to split that one pie up among all the people. Whereas capitalism says if there's only one service being offered, you can just create a new one if you'd like. There are always more pies to bake. And under capitalism, you're able to expand the amount of things available to people and available to yourself. If I don't like stereo's format because of whatever reason, I have the ability to go out and invest in creating a new app that I could use.
Yeah, absolutely. That says it perfectly. I can go ahead and continue on to that, but we got a message real quick here, so we're gonna listen to that.
Biden likes touching kids. I was one of them. He's aggressive.
You should definitely
That
come
is
on.
very true.
Sounds like you got some stuff. Yeah, it's true. It's kind of off topic for what we're doing today, but we definitely are planning on covering some of Biden's dark history, in a later episode. So yeah, please go ahead and come into another show later and leave that same comment. We can have a great conversation about that. But continuing off of what Spencer said right before we listen to that, that I want to point out, like think of the amount of innovation and technological change in the past, let's just go ahead and say 1,000 years, okay? How much change was there up to the founding of the United States, and then how much of an exponential rate of change was there after that? And the reason is because it's so exponential in the amount of change across the world, which is largely wrought by the U.S., is because America allows for it allows to work. It's okay. When I this is something that you have to say. Some people will be like, this is then. I've had people tell me that when I give these examples, they're just like, oh, well, this just shows that the U.S. is just a country full of selfish people, and that's not really what it is. Capitalism in the United States and democracy allows for people to have interest in saying into making whatever they want. For instance, the telephone. Okay. The telephone was invented in the U.S. It was invented because someone wanted a solution. Thomas Edison wanted a solution to making crap. He wanted a solution. He wanted to be able to increase communication, whether between him or between across the entire country, or the whole world. And the result was the whole world. I can call anybody. I can call someone in Russia right now. That was something that was totally unheard of before the creation of the telephone, obviously. But this invention was wrought by capitalism, where a man was able to create a product and invention, and then he was able to sell it and make money off of it, and now he's world renowned and universally recognized as the creator of the telephone. But this is because I'm sorry, I'm kind of stuttering a little bit here, guys. This is because of capitalism. It allowed for the freedom to create, with the freedom to make money, to support himself, to live, because you have to have money in order to live. At least, especially in the modern world, there's nothing you can really do without at least a little bit of cash. So these are just things that having a free market economy and capitalism facilitates the freedom to do whatever you want in terms of governing your own life and the choices that you're going to make. When you have instances of like communism or centrally planned government, where the government's in control of everything and kind of distributes or controls what's made, what businesses get big and stuff like that. First off, that's the system wrought with corruption, which is the opposite of a free market economy and of democracy. But you don't allow for the same number of innovation and for profit that you do in a capitalist society.
Right, and a lot of the corruption that we see in our economics, especially the so-called crony capitalism. Crony capitalism is actually a terrible name for it because it is all it is.
You're cutting out.
You're cutting out. All right, I'll keep talking. Capitalism is basically socialism.
Can anyone leave a message if I'm cutting out? Hit it twice if I'm cutting out. Hit it once if Spencer is. Because I can't really tell. To me, it sounds like he's cutting out, but to him, it sounds like it's me. Yeah, you're cutting out. Yeah, you're cutting out for me too. That's weird. Let's play a message real quick. Maybe it'll be fixed by the end of that.
So I've heard in my studies that some scholars divide capitalism into multiple kind of terms under the umbrella term of capitalism. When do you think is the threshold, the line that differentiates between a healthy and quality capitalism versus a predatory capitalism that exploits and normalizes the exploitation of peoples rather than facilitate a healthy economic relationship amongst peoples and states?
I think that's a matter of government, in my opinion. I believe it's government, and here's why. If you take, for instance, okay, our government now is different than the American government of, let's just say, 40 years ago, okay? And the difference is that I believe that there's more corruption and things happening in our government right now, and I have opinions on how we can solve this. But in the pure American form of capitalism, I believe that there is not nearly as much, as you say, oppression of, like individuals for the interest of a company, stuff like that. And the reason being that it's government, and here's where government and economy kind of go hand in hand, is that capitalism is, let's just say that's like a boat on the stream, okay? It's just letting the current take it wherever you want, and then there's, the current is the people, okay? Capitalism is the object, current is the people. The people choose where the boat goes when you're just letting it go by the current. And the government is, let's say, a person sitting in the boat that's bumping it back into a way that's going to keep it from going into trouble. I believe in the current political climate in the U.S. and the corruption coming from a lot of mainly just the left, and that's kind of big thing that we talk about. I'd say we're just diverging a little bit from that, but the left have people like Pelosi, corruption from big tech and stuff like that. I believe that these are reasons why the government may not have been doing that whole, check and a little bit of safety. It's actually making it harder or hurting the average person. But when you have the pure form American government, it works to protect the people and not at the interest of the politicians. When you have this kind of climate, then you have protection of the average person, because you can have an economy that, because the economy, and let's just be honest, people by nature are selfish. Some people are able to override it. Some people, it's really strong for them. People are naturally greedy. They want money. They want fame, whatever it may be. So I'm not going to say that, America is a country where everyone in the country is perfectly selfless and never has any issues, and they are good and righteous and selfless, and they'll just give everything up for everybody. Good old, big old country full of good Samaritans. There's selfishness in America too, absolutely. And I believe that that line that you're talking about really comes down to not the economy, but comes to the government, because the government is like the goalie or like the guide for the economy. The economy is the main plan, and then the government is here to protect the rights of the citizens and to make sure that things, kind of reassure things go smoothly. And our government is controlled by the people, and the economy is controlled by business, by supply and demand. So let me know what you think of that, because that's kind of where I stand on that. It looks like Spencer, he's still muted, so he might be having problems still. So go ahead and take another message.
I hear you, Cole Sun Herring. I don't hear this is Spencer very well.
Okay, thank you so much. We weren't really sure what was going on there. Yeah, we sometimes we live near each other, and we just sometimes have crappy Wi-Fi. So I think everyone can relate to that throughout the pandemic. Yeah. So.
Able to hear?
Oh yeah, you're good. We got you.
Okay. Let me add my thoughts to that real quick. Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So my basic philosophy on the government involvement with the economy is that the government should be involved enough that people are not getting seriously hurt, but they should not be the ones making economic decisions. That should be left up to businesses and various corporations, and the government should basically make it so that the economy is a fair playing field. And once it oversteps making it a fair playing field and making sure no one gets severely hurt, then I think the government has overstepped its bounds. I think capitalism operates off the this is another big thing about socialism, is capitalism acknowledges that human beings are inherently selfish, right? If you go into the Bible and you read, it says the natural man is an enemy to God. It says that the natural person is going to be selfish, and the natural person is going to pursue their own wants and desires. And so capitalism says, listen, we know you're going to be inherently selfish, so we're going to twist that, and we're going to use your selfishness to get more money, to get cars, to get a house, whatever, and we're going to change that and funnel it into if you want those things, you have to provide goods and services to the public. The word for this is called sublimation. Not a lot of people have heard about it, and it's basically taking those base drives and turning them into something good. And that's what capitalism does, is it takes that selfishness and it says, oh, you want that nice car? Well, you're going to have to provide goods and services to the country before you can do that. Whereas socialism operates under the idea that humans are inherently good and selfless. And the fact is that we can look at the world, and we can look, whether I was talking about earlier religiously, or even if you just do logically, it's clear that people are not inherently selfless. And the fact that socialism operates under that guise is why it fails, is because it doesn't realize that if I can get food for free, essentially, if I don't have to work in order to get my weekly stipend of food, then I'm not going to work, because why would I work? Bob down the street isn't working. And then all of a sudden, everyone isn't working because they might as well not, since they're not required to.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Capitalism is the ideal umbrella economy that should be overseen by a for us, which we believe is the ideal is a the U.S. the Democratic Republic government, where it allows the people to control the government. And I think that the government, like you said, Spencer, the government has a certain place they can go, and then that's where they should stop. They shouldn't be directly interfering. They should only, kind of like try to guide or gently nudge people back into play. And I believe some of that comes from things like antitrust, breaking up monopolies and oligopolies and things like that. And I think that when you have enormous, insanely wealthy corporations, you run into the trampling upon the common man that you see happening in America and really across the world right now, by people with a lot of power from money, because money is power. You have like Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook. These are really wealthy companies, and they have a common disregard for the common man and the opinions of people. They have a disregard for the government, and I believe that it's probably going to be hard now, but I believe that actions such as antitrust is the main power that a government has to help guide an economy. And besides that, they should really only be doing things that protect people's rights, such as workplace safety, regulations and stuff like that. We're also going to be this whole conversation. We're going to be talking about the minimum wage, which is something that the government has played a hand in for many years. There's minimum wage requirements across the country. And we're going to be talking tomorrow, because we just wanted to give a precursor here. So tomorrow we'll be talking about Biden's $15 minimum wage. That's another aspect of the government influence on the economy. These things just kind of create effects, and individually things like a minimum wage, someone can look at that and say, oh, this minimum wage is going to help someone, or oh, this new workplace regulation, or the way that people need to be regulated to do this or that. Those are good things. Those will help people, but every action has a consequence. And so in the perfect world, you would have a selfless government that was able to oversee a possibly greedy people working for money, working to better themselves, or better at least their pocketbooks, I would say, make their wallets fatter, things like that, because people are selfish. And so in an economy, an individual is working for themselves, or they're working to buy things for themselves, right? You're not working to buy like a $5 billion skyscraper, for someone else. You don't just buy a building and donate it to someone else. You'd buy something, and there's an interest factor, right? There's a self-interest, and there's absolutely selflessness, totally selflessness in the world. Things like service and kindness, and that are charity, stuff like that. And also, I just want to point out real quick, America, where you have capitalism, which people commonly refer to as the most selfish economy. Yes, that I think, like Spencer said it perfectly. We acknowledge that there's selfishness in people. We don't ignore it, but we just work the best we can with it. There's more. What I was going to say is, I want to point out that there's more charities in the United States than there is in any other country in the world. So
yeah, and
that's an important thing to realize.
And touching on what you just talked about and what I got cut off by a while ago, the crony capitalism is a type of socialism where, under true capitalism, no single company in a specific field, take social media, for example, Facebook, in a truly 100% capitalist society, Facebook cannot go to the government and say, okay, government, I'll pay you $3 million if you get this bill passed, which will make it harder for other startup social media platforms to come up. And that is a corrupted form of capitalism, which is much closer to socialism than true capitalism. And that is one of the things that we're trying to fight, is those sort of situations where it doesn't allow for the most economic freedom and the most competition to happen. A lot of people look at competition and they say that it's bad because, someone's going to get hurt. They think of a competition between two boxers, one of them is going down if they get in the ring with each other. But the problem is that that's not how the economy works. In the economy, competition is a good thing. Competition is a way of saying, we both offer this service and maybe it's identical, but one of us is cheaper, or I offer a better service than this other person and you're willing to pay a higher price for it. And that competition is what allows for people to vote with their money and people to create something more. And sure, there are companies that go out of business because the competition, drove them out. Someone else offered a better product. But isn't that amazing that there was a better product to offer in the first place? Under socialism, that company may have never gone out of business. Sure, it may have still kept operating, but the public would not have been benefited by this new technology. If the government had said, we will subsidize and keep flip phones as the ultimate, cheapest, best product, we would have never got smartphones. And I mean, look at our world today. If we didn't have smartphones, things would be so insanely different. And so capitalism just basically allows for people to increase the amount of good in society when it comes to the things that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I have an iPhone 7 and it's 100-fold times more advanced than a computer of 70 years ago. That's capitalism right there in its finest. There was an interest for smaller, faster, better, and so computers got smaller, and we got phones and everything. These are, oh, sorry, I guess kind of blurred out there for a second. These are things that came from capitalism, because there was an incentive to do better. Because if you make a better product, then you can sell a better product. That's just how it works. We do have 3 messages going on right here. Spencer, you want to do those real quick?
Yeah.
Do you think capitalism is the best ideology out there? Or is there something better?
We believe that capitalism is the best economic ideology out there. It's definitely not. It's completely in a different category than religious ideology or moral. But we definitely think that capitalism in its purest form is the best economic ideology.
Yeah, I mean, there, like when Spencer said there or a little bit ago about competition, in the real world, I think competition exists even in non-capitalist societies. Maybe not, on the scale that it does in capitalism between a business fighting another business for prices, but competition is a part of life. It's a part of just being an adult person. It's a part of being a part of society, and humans are naturally competitive. We're social creatures. We like to be around other people, and we like to compete, or prove we're good in this way or another. And so yes, in the modern world, and as far as I can see into the future, I would say capitalism in its purest form is the ideal and the best economic system. But it's not the system that you want to base your government off of. There is, I'm sorry, no, it's not that. I didn't mean to say that. It's not. It's because we, America, right? I'm just saying that, like, don't look at capitalism as like your ideological, moral compass, or the way you want
Right.
to structure your government. Because we have a government made for the people, with an economy made for individuals, because it allows an individual to profit themselves while also bringing profit to everyone else. So it's not like, a government that works for the people to better the people, because individuals work to better themselves on a natural basis. And so capitalism takes the best of that natural competition and greed and puts it into in America, puts it into an economy, and then creates a government to keep it from going too far.
Yeah, and that principle of competition is so important in capitalism, and it's the reason that capitalism does so well. And an analogy for that would be if I were running track against Olson and he got first place and I got second place, then that competition that we had, I lost, right? And in that situation, let's say that I went out of business because he had a better product than me or whatever. In that competition, instead of socialism, which says, well, it's okay, we'll keep, you got second place, we'll still give you a gold medal anyways for your effort. Capitalism says, okay, you got second place, what are you going to do to get first place? And so that competition, it drives me to search for that product or that service which will put me in that first place.
Absolutely, that's a perfect way to say it. Got another message here?
That's an interesting analogy, and I also completely agree. I think government involvement in the economy should be at a minimum. However, I think we are not giving credit where credit is due with the massive amount of influence that corporations and bigger companies have, both with us and the government. And I'm talking about lobbyists. I think they have grossly abused their influence to shift the goalpost, so to speak, in their favor. And that's what I would consider the threshold for predatory capitalism. And, I understand the corporate Democrats are one side of the coin, but the other side of the coin are the Republicans. And both of them are in the pockets of lobbyists and these big corporations, allowing them to change the rules of the game and not in our favor.
Lobbyists.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree. That's what I was talking about earlier about crony capitalism, where these big companies are able to go to the government and say, I will pay you if you do this for me. And I think that is a very bad form of capitalism, because it strays away from the principles of capitalism. So I agree with you. That is something that I definitely stand against, and that should not be happening in a true capitalist society.
Absolutely, yeah. And me and Spencer, before anyone else, you probably are going to mention it next, might be the NRA and the heavy lobbying they do. And I'd say that lobbyists do represent kind of a gray area in capitalism and government, because they kind of walk the line in between the two of them, because they use money and business competition, aspects of capitalism to influence the choices of the government, and the government really should be there for the people. So in the aspect of specifically focusing on the NRA, because I hear people talk about the lobbying that they do all the time. Focusing on the NRA, I believe that the government shouldn't be trampling on the rights of the people to own firearms. And we've talked about that before. I'm glad to talk about that again. So I think that the NRA is an act of self-preservation in terms of preserving American society. But other lobbying efforts and big tech companies that pay off and politicians or work to influence, where their motives are not righteous, their motives are not good, they're not working to maintain the Constitution, or they're working in self-interest. I believe that these are things that create that negative capitalism, the worst form of capitalism that you're mentioning there. And that's where capitalism fades away from becoming capitalism, like Spencer said, and it becomes socialism, and socialism becomes communism. that is really, it's a slippery slope when you start getting into things like lobbying and allowing the money to pay for things. And so that's why I say it's kind of a gray area, because it's difficult to judge what's good and what's bad. And because we can't just say none of it's bad, because in this modern world, well, a lot of stuff is gray, but I prefer to look at things as black and white, good versus evil. Some things are good and some things are bad. And so, that's just kind of where I stand on that. It's a funky little area right there.
Right. And it's dipping its toes, and not even the toes, it's dipping the whole leg of the economy into socialism, because socialism is where the government says, okay, we're going to regulate something that stifles business and stifles innovation and growth. And that's exactly what's happening with this. Is these big companies are going to the government and saying, okay, we want this law passed, or we want this, which will make it harder for our competition, or will make it harder for people on our platforms, or whatever else it is. And so, yeah, the way that they are doing this is definitely corrupt, and not the way that our economic or political system should be working.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I'll take another message here.
Subscribe to the machine on YouTube.
Okay, we'll take another one.
I would like it noted that while America does have the highest numbers of charities, they also have the highest number of fraudulent charities. A lot of these charities take the donations and use them 90% for their administrative purposes and paying their staff rather than the actual cause. And a lot of them are front faces that hide special interest or funding for certain corporations or political representatives.
Okay, so I don't want this to turn into a debate about charities. So I'll just say this real quick. So charity nonprofit organizations, some of the smaller ones that are, let's say it's just a group of people who in their off time, they run a charity or a foundation and they do this or that, then donate the proceeds, right? But when you have big charities that rely upon donations or maybe government donations, things like that, or the people, or maybe it's just strictly people, whatever. These bigger charities do have, staff, things like that. They do have to pay their staff. So yes, I would say that there without a doubt, there is probably some charities that are corrupt and that they are just paying themselves. They're not actually giving any money to anybody, or maybe they're completely lying about their cause in the first place. But it's worth noting that is not, I wouldn't even remotely consider that to be a significant portion of charities in the country, because a vast number of charities are not like that. But there might be a couple, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there might be, a few of them that exist here and there that are, maybe bigger, or maybe they're smaller and they are not true, or they got, self-interest, they got secret, things going on in the background. So, but that's really true with a lot of different things. So, that's just all that we're going to say about
that. My thoughts on that is basically, if that's happening, then that is wrong, especially because of various things like tax exempt notices or various other things that charities are allowed to do that regular businesses aren't. So I do think that is not something that should be done. In terms of the number, Colson, you're talking about that you think the number is pretty low. I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but you sound like you think it's pretty high. I honestly don't know about the percentage or the number of fake charities out there, but whether it is high or low, I think that is something that should be talked about and investigated, because that is operating outside of our current laws.
Absolutely, yeah, I do agree. Yeah, I don't really know the number. I would expect it to be low, but I don't have any kind of statistic to back that up. So that's just an opinion. So scratch that off what you will. But I would say that just talking about charities in general, we're not really. This isn't a charity thing. Just making an analogy when I mentioned that the first time. Go ahead and take another message here.
The highest quality of life, the happiest people, from any country is Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, the Scandinavian countries that are still capitalist but reform their capitalism with socialist policies and higher taxes on the rich. And with more social safety nets, the quality of life is better and people are happier and people do less crimes. So it's not really that socialism leads to communism. It doesn't have to. No one says it has to lead to communism, but doesn't also mean that communism is evil. It's just all the times communism has been practiced in the past, it went awry, you see. But capitalism is bad. The way capitalism right now isn't working. It should be reformed with more socialist policies to have more safety nets for people that fall from the graces of the 1%.
Okay. I
So
want.
the yeah, I'll add my piece real quick. The studies and various other things that have led to talking about Norway and I don't know if you mentioned Sweden or some other place as being better, happier places. Those studies, how studies should be conducted is they should be based off of measurable things, objective things, and the studies where that thinking came from studies where, especially in terms of healthcare, they went to people and they asked, "Hey, do you like your healthcare?" Or, "Hey, what do you think about this or that?" And if they said, "Well, I think my healthcare is pretty great," then of course they're going to think that it's the best because they haven't experienced what we have here. Whereas if you did objective side-by-side comparison in terms of statistics, in terms of number of innovations, the wages that people get, America has the second highest wages in the world, in the industrialized world. There's one other country, but I don't remember what it is. It's a really small one that does have higher overall. But those countries in general do not have a objective higher standard of living or higher way of operating just because they're socialist or more socialist than America.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to go ahead and we've got a little bit here. Denmark, Sweden, Norway, those countries. There are studies, and Spencer said, what we can. Those studies do seem to have a little bit of bias in them, and they're not entirely objective. But let's just go ahead and let's just assume they are objective right now, and say that those are totally true statistics and they are completely objective. And I would say that there are some people who would believe that. But going off that basis, in those countries, they don't have the freedoms that America has. Okay, so in America, we have freedom of speech, freedom to own a firearm, protect yourself, and freedom of privacy. All these hundreds of other freedoms. Okay,
Right.
And there are some instances which, I mean, compared to the vast number of the population, is quite small. But there are some instances of where there is poverty, and people talk about poverty all the time in the U.S., but really a very small portion of our country lives impoverished. And when we say impoverished, their impoverished is like living like kings compared to like third world countries. So that's another thing where where people need to be more objective about making those analogies. But in America, you might trade, some of these like socialized medicine, right? Where everyone gets access to medicine all the time, right? Let's just make an analogy real quick to that here in America. In America, for medicine, you have to work for having good health care. We don't have socialized medicine, although some people are trying to push that. You have things like Obamacare that are trying to push socialized medicine. In these countries where you have socialized medicine, good example right here, ambulances, okay? EMS, emergency medical service, in these countries normally has a response time of about 120 minutes. That's 2 hours, okay? That's 2 hours for an ambulance to get to you. So let's say that you were in the kitchen and cooking and you cut your wrist accidentally with a knife. Now you got, what is it? I think it's a minute to live if you cut that artery. You need medical attention immediately. I mean, your family can help you, but you need to be in the way to the hospital, like, and within this, as fast as an ambulance can get to you. In America, you call the ambulance, an ambulance will be there like as soon as humanly possible, and that's normally within about a 15-minute period, depending on where the hospital is relative to your position, your location.
And we have ones.
Yeah, and then we have better ones and stuff like that. 120 minutes. Okay, that's just an analogy. You have socialized healthcare instances. You have the overall medicine is a lot poorer quality. There's a lot less, quality of medicine and everything. Their times to wait are longer, and all these different aspects. I mean, for instance, life-saving surgeries or surgeries that would really help someone could take years and years and years to get to. I've heard of an instance of someone who needed a lung transplant and had to counteract with a aftermarket machine because they couldn't get into a hospital in the UK because there was no way for them to get the healthcare that they needed because it was socialized healthcare. So that's an instance. In America, you have rights and freedoms, and we trade that for, in a very few comparative number of instances, a lower form of life. But the vast majority of America lives in the middle class, which has a very high, form of life. We're living in our own houses with 1 or 2 cars, running water, heat, electricity, things like this. A vast number of majority of America lives in the middle class. So to say that
right.
Norway, Sweden, Denmark countries have a higher standard of living, and it's subjective. Subjective. It varies. And then the last thing you said there that I really want to touch on is that you said that communism has just failed in the past, and that communism isn't inherently bad, and that is irrefutably completely wrong. And I'll tell you why. Communism, which is based off Marxism by Karl Marx, in his journals where he describes his vision for communism, and we've said this several times now, he actually describes how he feels like the system was brought by the hand of Satan. Okay? I don't care if you are a straight up atheist and you think that everything religious is bad, okay? Anybody in the whole world who worships the literal devil, okay? Who,
or even
2 horns sticking out of his head, red-skinned devil, okay? Cartoon devil, like bad guy, okay? Universally recognized across the world, bad guy. Anybody who worships the devil and then base an entire government off of him and his quote-unquote influence, I do believe that, yes, communism was influenced by Satan, and whether or not someone is religious and believes me or not, I don't care. Communism is set up for failure, okay? It's set up to take advantage of the people, and the reason it will never succeed is not only because, as you say, it just hasn't succeeded in the past. Maybe we can make it succeed in the future is kind of what I feel like you're implying. Communism will never succeed, period. It will not ever because it cannot work for the betterment of the people. People hear things like socialism or communism implies society and community being bettered as a whole. Not true, okay? Think of the standard of life in China or Russia, okay? Almost everybody is impoverished, living at a fraction of the standard of living of the U.S. And then you say, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, they got a higher standard of living, which once I said is subjective depending on what class of America you're talking about. Obviously not the higher class, which is 1%, so I'm not going to talk about them as the majority, but the very vast majority of America is middle class, living with, like I said, running water, heat, electricity. So you need to be careful when you make analogies like that because those countries may not actually have a true higher standard of living. But let's go ahead and say that they do have a higher standard of living. The difference is that in America, we trade having rights and freedoms and economic freedom. For instance, going back to my ambulance analogy, socialized healthcare, your ambulance gets to you free. It takes 120 minutes, but it's free. An ambulance ride in the U.S. can cost anywhere from $400 to $2,000, depending on the length of the trip and what has to be done to help you while you're in the ambulance. So, yes,
but you're alive.
But you're alive, yeah. So how much money is your life worth to you, and how many freedoms do you have to have. So I would, if you ask me any day of the week, I would take freedom of speech and a freedom of religion, the ability to say what I want, to buy what I want, to live how I want, over living it with a guaranteed higher standard of life universally on an equal level to everyone else. Just that's not even a good comparison in my mind.
Well, and on top of that, he said that socialism doesn't always have to lead to communism, and that's like saying the
You're cutting out. You're cutting out again.
Okay, you're able to hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Saying socialism doesn't have to lead to communism is like saying the sun doesn't have to rise. Sure, there may be one day in the future, right, 1,000 million years from now, when the sun explodes and suddenly it's not going to rise. There one day, but if throughout the past rest of our entire history, we have not, it has never happened. The sun has never not got up. And it always, if you push in a socialist way continually, you're going to get to communism no matter what. It has never not happened unless people have stopped and reversed course towards capitalism.
Exactly. Yeah. If your goal is to push a boulder down the hill, if you keep pushing, eventually it's going to go down that hill. I mean, you can get get a crane and push that thing down the hill. Eventually, it's going to go. Somehow, it will go. So if you keep pushing towards a corrupt goal, which is socialized healthcare, a socialized standard of living, a socialized wage, socialized, you're going to be pushing for socialism and for communism, because socialism leads to communism in the end. Take another message here real quick.
I wanted to thank you for bringing up the topic of crony capitalism, predatory capitalism, reverse socialism, I think are all the different sides of this disease that I think is affecting our economy. I don't think I've seen a pure capitalism in our country since the Clinton era, which we were at our best economically, not necessarily social-politically, but economically was one of the high points of American history. What I would like is for our elected representatives, as well as people, consumers, and company leaders to stop idealizing this romantic idea of pure capitalism, which we don't have today, and stop worrying about that nostalgia and start focusing on addressing the affliction that is the disease of this predatory capitalism that is shifting us farther from our goal every day.
Well, you make a good point there, but I have to say that I kind of disagree. When you said that people need to start romanticizing that idea, I think that idea is a goal that people work for. I'd say in the Conservative Party, and I won't say Republicans, but the Conservatives and a portion of the Republicans work for this goal of that pure that pure capitalism, like you were referring to there. And I think that President Trump was the best chance that we have of having that. I think that him coming out of office is just going to set us back even further. I think that 8 more years of him being in office starting in 2024, it would be the only way that we can do it, unless we get someone in office that can help to guide America back into that form of pure capitalism. Pure capitalism is very much so attainable, just like it was, but since the Clinton era, you've had presidents like Obama, who did absolutely nothing for 8 years but hurt America, and you now have Biden, who has already hurt the country and is very much easily so conceivably going to hurt us a whole lot more. So these are just things that are going to result in effects that will detriment to the whole country, and the only way to you got to go back to President Reagan with his form of pure pure capitalism. He had the best capitalist economy. When you have these instances of strong capitalism, they're completely attainable. They're not unattainable, far-reaching, like utopia kind of thing, because utopia literally means a community that can never exist. But these pure capitalisms, these are attainable, but corruption and people pushing for socialist agenda in the U.S. has led to the degradation of pure capitalism, and this is a serious problem in the country. Go ahead and
How do I
hear you.
sound to you? Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, you're good. You're coming through pretty clear.
Okay, so there's actually a chart, and I have in front of me, and it ranks the presidents based on the difference in their EPI score from their first full year in office to their last full year. And Clinton, admittedly, was a 5.9 increase, which is good, right? We want to have an increase always, but under Reagan, it was a 15.1 increase. So under Clinton, it looks like there were some good things that happened, but definitely under Reagan and some of the presidents before him, it was much better.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, Spencer sent me a copy of that chart. Yeah, absolutely. Why settle for mediocre when you can go for even best? I'm getting a public call from someone. I think that's the extra. Sorry, I think that's you, the enthusiast. I can take your call after this, or maybe you can message me on Instagram. We can schedule that for another time. Take another message here.
The time for empty talk is over. Now
Yes, absolutely. Drain the swamp, bring results. Me and Spencer are here to talk because we hope that talking can breed change, because democracy dies in darkness. And yes, I'm citing the Washington Post motto, so go ahead and hang me out to dry for that one. But talking about it is what brings to mass change. People who are ignorant will never change anything. So that's what we're here. We're here to talk. We're here to bring results. I'll take another message real quick right here while Spencer's reconnecting.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I know this is about economics, but I studied politics for 5 years, so the two are sometimes very intertwined. I am also from Venezuela, so I am no lover of communism in any way, shape, or form, but what Karl Marx wrote in his Communist Manifesto, the communist ideology is free from ego and greed. It's a utopian society that will never ever exist because humans are naturally greedy and full of ego. So everything that we've seen, every manifestation of communism is a perversion of said communist ideal. What happened in Venezuela? It's not communism, Chavismo. Militaristic with overreach in every aspect of life, economic, political, and social. What we saw in Cuba, same thing, is Castrism, Maoism in China, Stalinism in Russia. These are all perversions.
Amen.
Yeah, you make good points. I just think that communism doesn't represent anything good simply because of its origin. I believe anything that comes from horrible origins is bad, and I'm going to get someone, I know I am, who's going to comment me, talk to me on Instagram or something and say, well, the U.S. was founded by slave owners or stuff like that. And you know what, we can have an argument about that. Go ahead and make that argument to me. I will defend the U.S. and defend the founding fathers till the day I die. I believe someone who openly supports and advocates plays the was the Devicate's advocate, and his goal in life was to create a Marxist society, which is communism. I just think communism is evil in any form it is, no matter what it is. And there may be perversions of it, as you say, which to me are just variations on a perversion itself. Communism is a perversion in the sight of God, and it is inherently evil in every possible way. That's my opinion. You're totally open to have yours.
Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to get to America from Venezuela and to escape all the evil that communism has done there. Even if communism's goals were good, the fact that it has never worked should be telling to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, it's never worked. It never will work. And people, my dad's known people. I've known people who say communism can work in the future. But these people just didn't do it right. And I'm like, well, first off, a lot of these people were a lot smarter than you. But communism doesn't work because it's designed not to work. It's designed to become corrupt. It's designed to hurt the common man. It was put together by Satan, and I can't think of any Satan in my mind, if anyone wants to give me an example of Satan that they know, personally, where he works to better society whole or work for the common good of a person. Go ahead and let me know what Satan that is, because as far as I know, Satan is the devil. So yeah.
Yeah, and we do
It's
have
the
to get
same
going.
with predatory
Sorry, but
capitalism, oligarchic capitalism, crony capitalism. These are all perversions of the true liberal economic ideology of free markets and facilitation of democracy through free trade. All these pop-ups of the not-so-nice stuff are all perversions of that ideology, not pure forms. So the same way that you defend capitalism, one could say you can also defend communism.
I was
sorry.
just going to say we do have to get going soon, but
Yeah.
we can answer this.
Yeah, so like I've said already, communism has bad intentions from the start. Capitalism has good intentions from the start. So, when you have evil intentions from the start, then you're only going to rot evil, and so that's why communism has never worked, and it's only hurt its citizens, or the people subject to it. But capitalism has obviously created the greatest nation in the world, that has had the most success of any nation in the world, that has had the most change of any nation in the world. We invented countless things, abolished slavery, gave women's rights. These are things that the United States is known across the globe for: melting pot, freedom. So yeah, I just have a very simple opinion on capitalism. I believe that I know that it about good intentions, and so it has allowed for good results. But when you have evil intentions from the beginning, then you're going to have evil results, and that's just what Marxism is. So, there's not a lot to say about that. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Take another message.
Sure.
But I'm just playing devil's advocate. I appreciate both of you guys. You guys are both very knowledgeable and well-spoken on such a convoluted and complicated topic. So I appreciate both of you for this excellent conversation. I'm going to go ahead and finish my workout, but I hope to tune in to more of your conversations. I will follow both of you.
Yeah, so much. You you are quite literally playing devil's advocate, and you're able to add your comments, and that's kind of what we're trying to do with today, is simplify it down and bring it into capitalism basics and try and get it to a way where everyone can understand without convoluted information.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much. We're really happy that we're able to, especially to appear, as well spoken and stuff like that. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you will be able to come out, because we really do enjoy the comments. We enjoy being able to talk to people and have conversation, because to me and Spencer just sitting here preaching to all of you guys is not nearly as fun as you guys being able to either preach back at us or just have a conversation. So, thank you so much. We do have 3 more messages we're gonna get through really quick, guys, because Spencer has got to go.
To think we have any semblance of democracy, there's plenty of reason to believe the Constitution hasn't been upheld for years through several administrations, here in America at least. And, we're told we have democracy. It's a faux democracy at best. It's the dollar that's running things. The dollar's for the debt slaves to fight over. And the cabal tries to keep us distracted by using their governments, pointing the blame game at everybody. Trump calling the China virus this, that, the other, while they're shielding the cabal from blame. That's what's going on. It's manipulation right on down to your DNA. Your DNA is being changed unbeknownst to you, and there's science to prove that.
Yeah, I have to say that. Spencer, you're cutting out again.
Okay.
Okay. While Spencer's working that out, just say real quick, I think that yes, the current form of democracy is nowhere near the ideal or even the democracy of like Reagan or Clinton or any of these past presidents that were good. Yeah, I think the current form of democracy is convoluted and it's phony. Me and Spencer, we absolutely support the purest form of democracy, a democratic republic, which is a government that works for the people and not for individuals. That's really simple. I'm not going to really go into that because we got to get through a couple more comments here. So yeah, yeah, please come on another show later. We can have more conversations about democracy. We've talked about democracy versus communism before. So yeah, go ahead and listen to some of our past shows. We've talked about that. Take a message real quick, if you're okay, Spencer.
Yep.
Are you talking about the New World Order? Because it has to do with economics, I have to run now because my baby is crying. Okay, bye.
I'm sorry, I didn't get a lot of what you were saying. And I kind of understand that. I've heard plenty of babies cry before, so I can understand that can be a little upsetting. But yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't catch a lot of what you're saying. Please go ahead and leave another comment, though, if you come into a later show. Whatever you're saying, definitely glad to hear it. We're running out of time right now.
If there's one more comment, we can take that, but then we do have to go.
Yeah, we got two more. You want to listen to these two and then go?
Yeah, we'll listen to them real quick.
Okay.
Man, y'all must be very young. And I get it while you're patriotic, but you're living an illusion. You must be rich too, because only wealthy people talk the way you talk. Or if you're a part of the working class, middle class, then you're just blind. America is an illusion from the very inception. I know you bought into history, but if 2020 ain't teach you something, it taught you that you're living a lie. 1913, man, this country no longer was a country for the people when it sold out to the central banking system and international bankers. I think you might want to do some research before you really kind of highlight capitalism. Capitalism is not for working class people. If you can't see that now, then you're just living a blind. Capitalism is only for wealthy people. You couldn't see it until the...
Okay, I completely disagree. Yeah.
As do I. My basic thought on that is that socialism is the one where it promotes the very, very few and it pushes down everyone else. Capitalism is the economic system that lifts all boats. You have to do something for other people in order to get to that point where you're rich. And right, maybe when you're rich, you can abuse it. But to get to that point, you have to do stuff for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to make this analogy real quick here. When you say if you're part of the working class, you're blind, I know I'm not blind. And I know I'm not blind because I have two parents that have worked their whole lives and they've bettered their lives and they have created life for me and for my siblings. My parents, before they had me, before I was born, I'm the oldest, they lived in a mobile home. They had cockroach infestations, one bed, smallest. Wow. It was just the smallest little thing. It was the size of like a lot of people's kitchens, in a one-story house in a cookie cutter neighborhood. It was super small, not a lot of space at all. My parents worked themselves, and they got jobs and worked as hard as they could. They worked themselves out of that house. They worked themselves into a bigger mobile home. Out of that, they worked into a kind of a rundown house. They used their skills and knowledge and worked hard and remodeled that house, sold that for more, remodeled the next house, sold that for more, remodeled the one after that. And now they are able to build the house that we live in now, which is their dream house. They plan on staying here till they die. My parents came from, they're not, not like, I'm not saying, they came from very low, concerned, from like, they had not very much money at all, living off of a very, very small amount of money. And they blossomed into this. My parents run their own business. My dad's a general contractor. That's a great example. America and capitalism is the economy that allows for the average person to do the best for themselves. My parents are not part of the 1%. They're middle class, and they have worked hard every day of their lives to better themselves. So I think the biggest problem that when people say all the time, they say, "Oh, America doesn't help people," what you're not looking at, okay? You're looking at things like welfare and crap like that, okay? Welfare helps nobody. Welfare only creates weakness. What promotes more weakness in a country than saying you can sit on your butt all day, whether or not you're actually disabled? I'll go ahead and pay all your bills as the government. You don't have to do a thing to take care of yourselves. My parents didn't get on welfare. They supported themselves. They grew themselves into this. And now they're living great. They're living up in the higher middle class because they worked for it every single day of their lives. So capitalism allows you to do that. In communism and in centrally planned government economies, you cannot work every day of your life to be there. That is like feudalism kind of crap, where it's like, sorry, if you weren't born into wealth or you didn't somehow obtain it through a miracle, well, then you're just out of luck.
Right. And my dad also started a business, and he improved our economic situation through hard work and through just constantly trying to improve. And he definitely improved his economic situation and our families, and he's been able to bless other through donating or helping people out or whatever places. We also started out in a small house, and now we have a larger house. It's maybe not the biggest house in the world, but it's a very nice, modest house that we're able to enjoy because of capitalism. So that's kind of my end thoughts. We do have to go. We aren't able to play any more messages, so sorry to those that didn't get heard. Feel free to tune in to our next show if you want to add some more thoughts to that, though, because we will be continuing this with the $15 minimum wage.
Yeah, absolutely. When you leave, Spencer, I might just listen to these last few. I'm kind of curious what they have to say.
All right, that's no problem.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you guys. My name is Colson.
My name is Spencer. We're 18 and American.
And we're ending the show today. We're signing off. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, guys. See you later.